How did you find out that this line had been excised from your lecture?
I got a call last Wednesday from my senior editor, and yeah, she was basically giving me the news that this decision had not been made yet, but that they were considering it and were wondering how I would respond. So I said, "Well, what do you think?" And obviously, I said, like, I'm absolutely not okay with that. This is against my wishes, and I will share that with the public. And then I didn't hear anything for quite a few days until, yeah, just Monday, less than 24 hours before it was published. They said, yes, we're going ahead and doing it.
There are three more lectures to come. So for the benefit of anybody who missed this one, albeit the edited version of this one, the irony, for want of a stronger word, lies in the fact that in many ways you were addressing precisely the sort of censorship and control that you have become a victim of.
Exactly. That's honestly why I couldn't really believe it. Up until the very last moment, I thought, no, they're surely not going to do it. And then when you listen to BBC Radio 4, and you hear your voice suddenly being cut, it's it's a very weird experience, James. I honestly have never experienced anything like it in my career. And like people got to understand, this is not a lecture that is like I wasn't freestyling behind the lectern, right? This is a text that was very polished. Like we worked on it for months. I was asked to do this many, many months ago, and the whole team of the BBC Reith Lectures was incredible. Like I've worked with many editors in my life, and these people were really, really good, and were giving me so much good advice on how to, improve the text, make it more powerful. So when I was there 4 weeks ago in London in the BBC Radio Theatre, I was really happy, and I honestly was quite proud. I was like, let's do this. And yeah, then to hear 4 weeks later that they're editing out a line out of fear, because I think that's basically what they've admitted, right? That it was because of legal reasons. Yeah, it's just profoundly disappointing.
I mean, I don't want to tempt you into the realms of speculation, but if Donald Trump hadn't reacted so strongly to the Panorama edit, do you think this would have happened?
I don't think so. And that's also what was suggested to me, that in normal times this wouldn't have happened.
Who would the competition be then? Do you think, if we could get inside the minds of the BBC Red Pencils, who would they cite as the competition to the title of the most corrupt president, the most openly, because openly is a crucial word, the most openly corrupt president in U.S. history?
Well, look, I'm a historian, so when I say something like the most openly corrupt president ever, like I think about that. Like, is this really true? Can I make this case? And I think the answer is yes. I made the decision to use the word openly, right? That's the big difference here with someone like Richard Nixon, for example, who was obviously also incredibly corrupt, in a way, maybe even more corrupt, but not openly. And Donald Trump and his family are obviously flaunting their corruption in a way that I think has been unheard of. Also made possible because of modern media, of course. You could go back to the Gilded Age, right? The Gilded Age, the late 19th century, was also an era of incredible corruption. But I think back then it was mostly the system that was being corrupt, and actually the presidents themselves were not that directly involved in the corruption. And again, it was not as openly. So I thought about this statement. I think it's defensible. I think it's plausible. I mean, people can criticize it, of course. I'm not saying like it's the truth, but it's not like I'm sharing some conspiracy theory or something like that.
No, and I mean, for people who are familiar with the genesis of the Reith Lectures and certainly the identity of the first Reith lecturer, it becomes sort of doubly or triply troubling, doesn't it? Because this is supposed to be an exercise in free speech. You've talked about the paralyzing cowardice of the media in the face of these kind of threats.
Exactly. And the first Reith lecture was Bertrand Russell, my greatest intellectual hero, who was known as a staunch advocate for free speech, who was canceled when he came to America, right? He was sued by a mother from Brooklyn because she accused him of poisoning the minds of the young. and spreading, two free ideas about sex. So I don't know. The irony is just immense. And also, the lecture itself is exactly about the cowardice of today's elites. It's about universities, corporations, and yes, also media networks bending the knee to the administration. And we've seen it in the US, right? Many, many big media networks like Disney, for example, just giving in to the pressure and to the bully. But to my knowledge, I mean, this does feel a little bit different. Like this is really removing a line from something that already went through the full editorial process.
Well, speaking of editorial processes, if you'd put this in a book, would you have expected any pushback at all from an editor or a publisher?
No. I've never, in my whole career, I've never experienced anything like it. It's surreal. And also, I was initially thinking, like, is this something peculiar about British media? Because I was obviously discussing with colleagues, like, for context, I'm Dutch, so I've spent a lot of time in media, and I was talking to it about it to colleagues, and yeah, everyone was just bewildered.
Why? I mean, this might seem like a stupid question. I want you to leave modesty aside if you can, Rutger. Why did they ask you to do it, to do the Reith Lectures? Do you think?
Well, they said that they wanted to invite a provocative thinker. And I think that's what I am. And they said that this year's Reith Lectures are a provocation. Like that's literally the term that they used when they announced me as their Reith lecturer. So I think I kind of did my job, didn't I? And even like, I mean, that sentence, Donald Trump being the most openly corrupt president. I mean, it's a little bit like an offhand remark, right? The reason I say it is because I'm like, I don't want to make this a boring lecture. We already know this. Now I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes dunking on my own side. Yes. So I spent most of the time criticizing the weak European Union, weak centrists, weak liberals, failing leftists. I mean, that's what I spent most of my time on. So, yeah.
Was there any pressure put on you to keep this under your hat? Because, I mean, the phrase Streisand effect springs to mind from the BBC's point of view. Drawing a lot more attention to the bit that they cut than it probably would have received if they hadn't cut it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, no pressure.
Sure.
So it's not that they threatened me with, I don't know, lawsuits or anything like that. But they certainly asked me if I could, not say this.
Okay.
But for me, that was, I mean, ethically, that was obviously not an option, but also pragmatically. I mean, there were 500 people in the BBC radio theater when I gave the lecture. There was already someone leaking about it to the Daily Mail. So I'm pretty sure it would have come out anyway. And actually, I saw people on social media, before I had posted this, they were already saying like, hey, what is happening here? Was something just cut? You can very clearly, in my view, hear it in the edit that a line has been removed.
I mean, it's good that we can smile about it, but I don't think anyone will be unaware of the seriousness of what you're describing. So finally, Rutger, if you would, a word on what you've described as authoritarian breakdown, a word on where this event sits in the bigger picture of what you describe and what you have articulated your fear of.
My fellow historian, Timothy Snyder, has written a brilliant book on tyranny that was published shortly after Trump was first elected. And it contains a couple of lessons that we need to remember in times like this, when there's a real risk of an authoritarian breakthrough. And the first lesson was the lesson that I kept thinking about in the last week. It was, do not obey in advance. And that is exactly what the BBC has done. Like, there was no direct threat from the Trump administration. The Trump administration, I don't think they give a damn about who I am. I've said this many times anyway, but they were still fearful and they still thought, let's not do it. They presumably thought that the British tabloids, are going to turn this into a big thing and say, oh, they've invited a left-wing lunatic to insult the great president. And yeah, I honestly think that's why the decision was made. They cited legal advice from lawyers and suggested that it was not up to them and that, the lawyers had decided. But that's not how it works, right, James? It's Lawyers never decide. It's leaders who decide. And I think they've made the wrong decision.
Yeah, you're right, isn't it? It's obeying in advance in a bloody nutshell.
Yeah, it's a textbook case. Like I was thinking about what could be the possible reasons to
Yeah,
do this. I mean, one is obviously that you really are scared of Trump
sure.
and the lawsuit, etc. But the other reason is obviously that it might just be the political fight going on. And I don't know how this decision was made. I know it was being discussed at top level. That's what I know. But was the board involved? I don't know. Um, and yeah, we know that there's a big political fight going on inside the BBC.